I finally caught up on Better Call Saul, and what a ride it's been. I feel like I've been rebaptized. I've binged all 6 seasons up till the mid-season finale over the course of about 2 months, and have loved every second of it. Now, I've said this before, but maybe you don't know. Breaking Bad is one of only 3 things I would ever give a 100% to on the Moist Meter. I think this show is a nearly flawless masterpiece, and the day that I finished watching Breaking Bad was one of the best days of my life, up there with the day I was born. I just cherish that show. And I'll openly admit, I was a naive fucking fool who wasn't sold on the concept of a Saul Goodman spinoff when it was announced. So I never watched season 1, and then season 2 rolled around and I felt like I was already too far behind to catch up, so I never bothered. And it wasn't until a couple months ago where I just got that itch, like a professional athlete who just has that drive to compete at the highest level of their sport. That was me, and my sport was watching TV shows. So over the course of a couple months, I binged all of Better Call Saul, and I gotta say, I was missing out. This show is right up there with Breaking Bad, and it takes place in the same universe, so naturally people would compare them. And I just wanted to make a video giving you my thoughts. Since I think so highly of Breaking Bad, I want to get everything out there with how I feel about Better Call Saul. And I want to make it clear right away, I fucking love this show. Better Call Saul has blown me away. It has just become like a second mother to me, and she's popped the titty out and I'm suckling. She's supplying me with all the nutrients I've ever needed. It's just another masterpiece. I'll of course be moist metering this show once it comes back from its mid-season hiatus. It went out to the store to get some cigarettes, and when it gets home, I'll moist meter it then when it's complete. And I don't really want to be comparing it to Breaking Bad in the moist meter when I'm reviewing it, so I'm just going to do all of that here in this video. Of course, there's no objectively right answer here, and they're two very different shows that go in very different directions and tones. And I don't think there's one that's like actually better than the other. I think they just exist beautifully together as a complete package for the universe. But I still thought it would be fun, since everyone else compares it, to give you my thoughts and tell you where I lean on which one I enjoyed more. Before I get to that, I just want to show you my immediate reaction to the mid-season finale, because I talked about it a bit on stream. I am, however, caught up on Better Call Saul. Bro, that mid-season finale is amazing. And it's downright criminal that we have to wait like 6 weeks for it to conclude. I'm tight. Like, I'm actually mad about that. I was watching that in bed the other night, and the second it ended, I just sat there for like, I'd say probably about 2 minutes just digesting it. That actually shut my body down with a hype overload. It like overloaded my chakra. I was blown away by it. I think the mid-season finale is the best episode of the series. It was just a straight-up mic drop, and then it slapped me in the face. It is outstanding. And it's up there with Breaking Bad's best episodes as well. It's the culmination of 6 seasons worth of character building and development with relationships, as well as how they get to this point, and a giant scheme that they've been planning for quite some time now, all coming to fruition, all bubbling over into an absolutely shocking conclusion, and I just cannot wait to see how it all ends. So I'm a huge fan of the show, and I'd like to get into how I feel about it versus Breaking Bad. I'm just going to hit you with the cold water right away and just drop my pants and let you see me for who I am. I think Breaking Bad is still the better overall show. But I don't think there's a right answer on this SAT question here in which one is a better show. It comes down to personal preference. For me, Breaking Bad squeaks itself away in a photo finish to take the dubski, thanks to the size, the scope, and the stakes of the series. Across all of Breaking Bad, you're constantly dealing with life and death stakes. You know, how is Walt going to handle this new problem? Is this person going to die? You never know who's going to die, and the tremendous impact that has on the world as a whole. Not just the characters, but it has a giant ripple effect that echoes throughout the entire show, and you get to see that throughout Breaking Bad. Whereas in Better Call Saul, I think it has better writing. I actually think they've improved the writing a lot for Better Call Saul, but it's much more focused on the characters. It's a much bigger character-driven piece, with the relationship between Saul Goodman, Kim, Howard, Chuck. You're seeing them interact with each other, grow with each other, and all of the tension, all of the conflict, and all of the ramifications of things all affect the characters specifically, and it stays with just the characters being affected. It doesn't have these far-reaching, unforeseen consequences out in the world, at least not right away. I will say, over the course of the last couple of seasons, the tone has been shifting ever so slightly to be more in the direction of Breaking Bad, where the stakes are getting raised. They introduced a new villain, Lalo, and I think Lalo Salamanca is the best villain in the Breaking Bad universe. And I don't say that lightly, but Lalo is a cold, calculating fiend, and every time he is on screen, he steals the scene. An absolutely amazing villain. He's like the fucking boogeyman. Just have you wetting your pants at the mere mention of his name. And you see that in the show, and it's great. You know, anyone that meets Lalo gets shaken. He has just this absolutely mind-crushing effect on people's psyche because he is just that feared. It's such a good character, such a good villain. But like I said, the show's very different from Breaking Bad in that instead of the tension coming from how Walt is going to handle a problem or what's going to happen to Walt as a result of a mistake, is someone going to die here, who's going to die here, how are they getting out of this situation, they're going to shoot their way out, what have you. Instead of like nuts to butts, action, death, and adventure, in Better Call Saul, the tension comes from, well, Saul's doing some sketchy shit. How is Kim going to react? He's still trying to get his approval from his brother, Chuck. How's he going to react to what Saul's just done? Is he going to go to jail? Is he going to be disbarred? So the tension and everything is still very much there, and it's very well done because the show does an incredible job of making you care about the characters. But like I said, as a personal preference, I preferred the life and death stakes. It made everything feel much more grand in scope. But I still do love Better Call Saul, and like I said, it's not always like that. As the seasons develop, it is getting more life or death stakes. Things are having a lot wider consequences and a lot more serious consequences as more things get introduced. But on the whole, I think Breaking Bad just did a better job of giving me the sense of wonder, mystique, and holy shit, this is big time. This is huge. This is going to affect the whole goddamn planet, what Walt's doing in the laboratory. Whereas in Better Call Saul, it is much more localized to the characters that we are seeing consistently. We are watching a character-driven piece. It's just very different in its tone from Breaking Bad. And I still love it. Like I said, I think Better Call Saul has better writing. I also think it's shot better than Breaking Bad, which of course makes sense since it's the same team. They're obviously going to be getting better at this. But I also think Saul Goodman's fall from grace and temptation to the dark side of the Force is better executed than it was for Walt in Breaking Bad. It's meticulously crafted with Saul Goodman where he's just constantly tiptoeing over the line into a very shady area and very more and more morally indefensible. Whereas in Breaking Bad, it's kind of like a switch that flips to a certain extent, where Walt immediately just starts becoming a really bad guy and getting worse and worse and worse. Saul Goodman starts as someone that you can't help but root for a little bit. It's a guy who's, wasn't a good person in the past and has done their absolute best to get their approval of their brother and make something of themselves. And it's a pretty wholesome story that I think a lot of people can relate to with the Saul Goodman backstory as Jimmy McGill. And as you continue the journey, you keep seeing him go a little further and a little further and a little further until now he's at a point where he's doing some fucked up shit. And I think the way that we got here in Better Call Saul was executed better than it was in Breaking Bad. It really did a great job of slowly showing you Saul succumb to temptation and end up where he currently is. And he never comes across as the villain. He never comes across as some heartless, cartoon, mustache-twirling bad guy, just evil for the sake of being evil. And he never comes across like Walt, either. Walt is someone that you clearly can't root for by the end of the show. However, Saul Goodman, he never has his I am the danger, I am the one who knocks moment like Walt does. Even when he's doing the most morally fucked shit, or defending someone from the cartel, or doing something for the cartel, there's always almost a way of justifying it to see how Saul could have gotten here. And since we've grown so much with the character and seen him from the bottom till now, there's always a way of looking back on his past and being like, yeah, I kind of get how we got here. You know, I can sympathize with him, which I really appreciate. They spent so much time crafting these characters to perfection. So I actually think Better Call Saul is better than Breaking Bad in quite a few areas. But there are certain things about Better Call Saul that I think Breaking Bad just does better. For example, I think Jesse is a better secondary character than Kim. I think Kim is great in Better Call Saul, don't get me wrong, I think she is a fantastic character. And again, these aren't even characters that can really be compared, it's apples to oranges, they're just completely different. But since this whole video I just want to compare the shows together, I figured I might as well talk about the most important character behind the lead, and in this case, it's Kim. Breaking Bad's case, it was Jesse. So Kim's main conflict comes from profession versus own sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, rather. Kim is the most talented lawyer in the show, and everyone in the show appreciates that and wants to work with her. And she works many places, the best firms there are. HHM, Schweikart even has her own private practice, and she has big clients and always has slam dunks, just absolutely goes fucking hog wild on the law and makes magic happen. So she has a client like Mesa Verde, bank, big bank. She's making money off them, putting food on the table, and she's raking in the fat stacks, supposedly. But she never feels that sense of satisfaction. There's a hole in her soul where she feels like she's not using her talent to actually help people individually. So as the show progresses, it's her battling that, you know, juggling profession versus morals. She wants to help people, but she knows she also needs to make money. She starts her own practice at some point, and then she takes a lot of pro bono cases, which then leads to her fumbling Mesa Verde a bit. And everything that she goes through usually revolves around the law and her use of it, whether it's to help rich people, which also makes her rich, or to help people that she thinks needs a fighting chance in court, where without her they wouldn't have it. And I think it's great, and I think it's handled really well. Like I said, I think Kim is a fantastic character. And I love the way they're handling her tiptoeing into the pool of temptation. She's been going through subtle changes over the course of quite a few episodes now. And it didn't start that way. She used to be, you know, by the book. No horseplay, no silly stuff, nothing fishy, all above book. But as her and Saul Goodman get closer and closer, Saul Goodman begins to rub off on her. Now she's starting to come up with her own schemes and scams and bending the rules, and it's just been a really interesting transformation to watch that I think has been handled masterfully. But then in Breaking Bad, there's Jesse, and holy shit, he's gotta be the saddest character in television history. Nothing good ever happens to him that lasts longer than 30 minutes. I swear to God, someone must have gathered all 8 Dragon Balls and made a wish just to curse Jesse for life. His story, his character arc, is just a depressing train wreck that you can't look away from. Throughout the course of Breaking Bad, you see so much awful shit happen to Jesse. He loses everything, loses everyone, tortured. You name it, Jesse has gone through it. And yet, there's still hope in Jesse by the end of the show. There's just something to be said about a story like that goes that hard and gets that dark for a character like Jesse. It's something I've never seen attempted before Breaking Bad, nor after. Or at least it's never been done nearly as well as it was in Breaking Bad. I really think Jesse is one of the most interesting characters to ever hit the screen, movie, TV show, any of it. I really think there's so much depth to that character. And now I want to make it clear, you know, Jesse's not a saint, right? Jesse's not some angel. He's done fucked up shit too. But you always have to wonder, does he deserve everything that happens to him in that show? It's just so well done. So again, you can't really compare Kim to Jesse, but I'm doing it just for the sake of talking about how I feel overall about Better Call Saul versus Breaking Bad, since that's the whole subject of the video. I do, however, think that the new character introduced in Better Call Saul, Nacho, is actually kind of comparable to Jesse. They go on similar journeys in different ways. Both of them start by making some bad choices. And as a result of these bad decisions, they suffer for the entire duration of the show. Nacho, I'm avoiding spoilers as much as I can and being as vague as I can. Nacho, throughout the course of the series, is being used, abused, shot, beat up, all for the sake of the people that are doing this to them, furthering their own goals by using him to achieve it. He goes undercover for people, he does dirty work for people, and every step of the way, he does exactly what's asked of him to perfection, and still just gets blasted for it every time. And while Nacho's not a good person, he has a good heart. He cares about his father and will do anything to protect his dad and get him out of harm's way, no matter what the cost. And I just think Nacho is a great character. I don't think it's a one-to-one comparison with Jesse by any means, but Nacho does go through similar circumstances, and it's just a really compelling story arc with that character. But yeah, obviously I recognize these are just two very different shows, but since they're in the same universe and since everyone compares them, I wanted to get my feelings out about them. If there wasn't Breaking Bad to compare this show to, I would consider Better Call Saul my nearly flawless masterpiece. The same way I view Breaking Bad, I would view Better Call Saul that way. But since Breaking Bad is there, I still give the edge to Breaking Bad just because, for my personal taste, I just appreciate the stakes being that much higher. And it's just a slight edge I give Breaking Bad over Better Call Saul. I think Better Call Saul is better in quite a few areas. And I actually do want to say this. I think Saul Goodman is a deeper character than Walt. You never really can put a finger on how Saul gets to the point that he's at. Is it greed that drives him? Or is it something deeper? Is it the people around him that pushed him over the edge finally? Everyone always looked down on Saul and expected nothing from him. His own brother always just referred to him as Slippin' Jimmy and never saw him as anyone that could do anything good. He believed he had a good heart, but at the end of the day would always lead to down the most destructive bad path imaginable. So is there something in the way that people treated him that perhaps made him feel spiteful? That he had something to prove. And you just never get a concrete answer for what really gets Saul Goodman to the point where he goes over the line. Whereas in Breaking Bad, it's no secret, it's not like the goddamn, Coca-Cola formula. Everyone knows what drives Walt to do the things he does and get to the point that he ends up at. It's the power. Walt loves being Heisenberg. He says as much. He makes it very clear how much the power means to him. His previous life was shitty. He was just an unassuming teacher with perhaps a bit of a problem with his self-esteem. But as Heisenberg, he's the fucking man. And that means more to him than anything. People get hurt around him, and yes, he'll feel bad about it, but the power makes him feel better. It's very clear what drives Walt in Breaking Bad. In Better Call Saul, it's a little muddier. You're not ever really sure how Saul truly feels about the things that are happening around him and the decisions he makes. So I just think he's just a bit more of a deeper character, which makes sense since Better Call Saul is much more of a character-focused piece as opposed to Breaking Bad. I think both shows are absolutely amazing. But again, like I said, I do very, very slightly give the edge to Breaking Bad for my personal taste. But I think both are truly masterpieces. And if you haven't seen either one, I highly recommend them. And I just wanted to talk about this and compare them in a whole video here since I won't be doing it in the Moist Meter. And yeah, that's about it. See ya.